Welcome to another episode of the Freedom-Filled Life and Historical Markers. Today we're in Chattooga County, Georgia, and we're going to learn about railroads and Indians and mills and all kinds of other things. So like, subscribe, and stay tuned, and let's learn about history. This marker is for Chattooga County. Chattooga County was created by Act of December 28, 1838 from Floyd and Walker counties. It was named for the river which flows through the county, called Chattooga by the Cherokee Indians. Sequoyah George Guest, or Gist, inventor of the Cherokee alphabet, was born and lived for some time near Alpine in Chattooga County. First county officers commissioned February 5, 1839 were G.T. Hopkins, Clerk Superior Court, I.N. Bibb, Clerk Inferior Court, W.T. Kellett, Sheriff, and I. McNeely, Coroner. This marker is a snapshot of Cherokee life. A portrait of Dirktown in the 1830s depicted the lifestyle of the majority of Cherokee communities. People led the life of subsistence farmers with simple log cabins, small cornfields, and fruit orchards, and range livestock. Their lives contrasted with those of wealthy Cherokee planters, a small minority who owned regal homes, extensive plantations, slaves, and ferries. When federal agents inventoried Cherokee property improvements in 1836, the estate of Dirktown resident Escalo totaled $296.75, typical for most Cherokee families, only 15 miles upstream from Dirktown. Treaty Party leader Major Ridge had vast plantations and other properties worth more than $81,000. When a wealthy minority signed a fraudulent treaty that ceded eastern Cherokee lands, life changed forever for the Cherokee Nation. The people of Dirktown, like the bulk of Cherokee nations, vehemently opposed the treaty. Their voices were not heard. Peaceful resistance did not stop the unwarranted arrest and deportation of Cherokee by the U.S. Army and Georgia militia in May and June of 1838. The Cherokee Nation, rich and poor, was driven from their eastern homeland to a bitter exodus to Indian Territory in present-day Oklahoma. The poorer people, like Dirktown's residents, suffered the most in detention and relocation. Their journey over the Trail of Tears was marked by high mortality as they marched through one of the coldest winters of the 19th century. And then at the bottom down here, it says, forced to move. Gives the paths that they were marched through the various states. And then here's the Trail of Tears Historic Trail. Trion Factory, Chickamauga Campaign Heritage Trail. Headquarters, 1st Division, Trion Factory, September 13, 1863, 12 p.m. Major W.H. Sinclair. Wheeler's force that left for Lafayette yesterday on my approach returned at 2 o'clock this morning to the crossroads at the junction of Ringgold and Lafayette roads. I cannot, of course, drive them off. They made a stand 3 miles from here, the regiment I spoke of attacking them. I move at once to join you. The road to Lafayette this way is bad, as their cavalry is here. I think, with our forces joined, we may get nearer Lafayette. I will leave a squadron at the junction of the Trion Factory and the Broomtown Valley roads to protect that flank. E.M. McCook, Colonel, commanding. At forks of Trion and Lafayette Roads, September 13, 1863, at 2 p.m. Colonel McCook, commanding cavalry. Colonel, General Crook directs me to say we went on to Lafayette this morning, captured their infantry picket, and got all the desired information. Some of my scouts reported a heavy column of infantry, cavalry, and artillery passing toward Somerville on the Lafayette Road. If you come in contact with this party, fall back slowly and watch their movements, and report to General Stanley. He may go to Alpine tonight and may camp at the Big Spring about 9 miles from Alpine. Please communicate with me as soon as you get this, what you have seen and learned, and what you will do. Respectfully, W.M. Sinclair, Assistant Adjutant General. September 14, 1863, Confederates reoccupy Trion, this time with a brigade of infantry. Helm's brigade was commanded by Brigadier General Benjamin Hardin Helm. General Helm was killed in battle 5 days later at Chickamauga. General Helm was Mary Todd Lincoln's brother-in-law. Abraham and Mary Lincoln mourned the loss of her Confederate relative upon hearing of his death at Chickamauga. September 15, 1863, at this site on the Somerville-Lafayette Road, near the covered bridge across from Chattooga River, the Battle of Trion Factory took place. Confederate cavalry and infantry repulsed a brigade of Federal cavalry. Confederate General Joseph Wheeler's records show that Confederate loss was 7 men, Federal loss was 55 men. The dead were buried in the battlefield beside the road, now Trion Cemetery. Trion Factory, now Mount Vernon Mills, is still in operation. September 19th to 20th, 1863 was the Battle of Chickamauga. And then here's the cemetery. In fact, I see several Confederate flags flying throughout the cemetery. Trion Factory, Chickamauga Campaign Heritage Trail. In late 1863, the Federal Army of the Cumberland began moving toward Georgia on the extreme right of the Federal lines. The 20th Army Corps, commanded by Major General Alexander M. McCook, began advancing across Lookout Mountain with Alpine, Summerville, and Rome, Georgia as the objective line of march. Federal cavalry regiments, commanded by Major General David S. Stanley, reconnoitering far in front of the main body of the 20th Army Corps, arrived in Chattooga County on September 1st, 1863, and skirmished with Confederate cavalry, commanded by Major General Joseph Wheeler at Tapp's Gap, present-day Cloudland, and at Neal's Gap on Lookout Mountain. Over the next 10 days, as more Federal forces entered Chattooga County, there were cavalry skirmishes at Melville, present-day Lyerla, Alpine, Dirktown, and Summerville. On September 11th, Federal Commander Major Alexander McCook in Alpine orders aggressive reconnaissance at all hazards toward Lafayette on the Summerville-Lafayette Road and the Broomtown Road. On September 11th, Confederate General Wheeler wrote in his letter at this site to General Hill near Lafayette. Headquarters Cavalry Corps near Trion Factory, Summerville and Lafayette Road, September 11th, 1863. Lieutenant General D.H. Hill, Commanding Corps. General, after having ascertained that the force of the enemy reported to have gone toward Rome had not crossed the Coosa River or gone toward Rome, but had only crossed a short distance over the Chattooga River, I returned to this point. I left a picket at Dirktown and one of the Melville and Rome roads south of the Chattooga River with orders, should they be pressed by the enemy, to fall back on Rome, reporting to me and also to the commanding officer at Rome. I now have 7 regiments of General Wharton's command with me, diminished, however, by various scouts, pickets, and other details. I have several scouts in among the enemy this side of the mountain. The scouts I sent out during last night had orders to report directly to you. This evening, the enemy's cavalry was 4 miles the other side of Summerville. Scouts sent to Neal's Gap have not yet reported to me, as I do not know anything about the movements of our army. I shall have to depend on you for such instructions as you see proper. Very respectfully, General, your obedient servant, Joseph Wheeler, Major General. September 12, 1863, the Confederate forces withdrew from Trion toward Lafayette. September 13, 1863, Federal cavalry occupied Trion. The commander writes this letter. Headquarters 1st Division, Trion Factory, September 13, 1863, 10 o'clock. Major W.H. Sinclair, Assistant Adjutant General. I drove their pickets from here this morning again. I have made a move on this side of the river and sent the 4th Indiana toward them soon, and move from here by 1 o'clock to join your column unless the regiment sent forward returns sooner. I thought it better to send only the small force to the other side of the river because the country there is bad to handle a large force in, and the force in front of Me's, I stated in my last dispatches. Larger them I could whip. One regiment can accomplish all that the whole division could. I will send you couriers as I head from the front. Send back by these instructions whether to join you at once or wait. I am still impressed with the belief that the enemy's infantry are in force the other side of the Coosa at Lafayette and their cavalry on this side. E.M. McCook, Colonel Commanding. The first cotton mill in northwest Georgia. 3 Walker County businessmen, Andrew P. Allgood, Spencer S. March, and Colonel W.K. Briers, officially organized the Trion Factory October 12, 1845. It has had few shutdowns since its first production in 1847. In 1858, an epidemic. In 1864, Sherman's invading Federal Army closed the mill until the end of the war between the states. Fire on April 10, 1876, only shut the mill for 6 months, and a strike for 6 weeks in 1934. 3 families owned and operated the mill through its first 150 years. The Allgood family from 1845 to 1912, the B.D. Regal family from 1912 to 1987, and the R.B. Pamplin family purchased the mill in 1987. And here's the mill. Apparently still in operation today. Valley Store, Broomtown Road, Chickamauga Campaign Heritage Trail. In late August 1863, the Federal Army of the Cumberland began moving toward Georgia. On the extreme right of the Federal lines, the 20th Army Corps, commanded by Major General Alexander M. All of this is the same. Headquarters, 2nd Brigade, 2nd Cavalry Division, Valley Store, September 12, 1863, 10 p.m. Colonel M. Cook. Sir, I have a battalion just returned from Trion Factory, which last met with no enemy in that direction. If your horses are not too tired, I would like to have you move toward Lafayette at daylight in the morning. I will move in that direction at that time on this road. Very respectively, George something or other. Brigadier General Crook wrote on September 29, 1863, his official report of the command here at Valley Store. On the 13th of September, General Stanley being sick, I was ordered with all cavalry force to make a reconnaissance to Lafayette to ascertain what force the enemy had in that place. I sent General McCook with 2 brigades to march on Lafayette, but the Somerville Road would march on the direct Broomtown, something intending the 2 commands to march abreast. This sign is really very hard to read. Meeting 2 heavy forces swung around on something road in my something. With my columns, I struck their pickets some 10 miles from Lafayette, driving them steadily without firing until within some 3.5 miles of town, when I saw by their actions I was near their force, and I ordered regiment to charge and pick up their pickets. When Colonel Campbell, at the lead of the North Pennsylvania, made most a gallant charge and picked up the pickets in front of the line of something, they fired several volleys into him, but the dust was so thick that there were only 3 wounded and 2 missing. The rest of this I'm not sure I can read. It's got so much stuff on the sign. But this is the marker in Chattooga County, Georgia. Well, that was Chattooga County. I certainly hope you learned something. I hope you like, subscribe, and we'll learn more about history in future episodes of Historical Markers.